I'm a pretty confident swimmer, and an even more confident drunk. Did I spoil the ending already? I grew up on the wilds of the Hudson River, where it's miles across, and swimmable from the shore. Growing up there was enough mixture of city and nature that the place to hide was the woods and shores when you wanted to get fucked up. As we got older, a friend of mine, after a lush settlement came through, purchased and repaired a rather large sailboat. I was a member of its maiden voyage, near sunset. We had been drinking and getting stoned all day, as it was the summer, and that is what we were accustomed to. And there we were battling the current of the Hudson River. "I'm jumping in," I said, thoroughly pissed and overly confident. I wouldn't do that. The captain, who hadn't truly figured out how to sail, replied. After a bit of back and forth, and some encouragement of some of the passengers, I leapt from the boat into the churning waters of the river, and I immediately regretted my decision. The boat whisked away from me at a staggering pace, and I found myself miles from shore in either direction. "You have to fucking come back," I immediately screamed as I attempted to swim for the boat. Little did I know that a river is home to a plethora of currents, running in all directions, impossible to swim with or against. 30 seconds of fighting the water, I was drenched in sweat, some from panic, and most from struggle. Suddenly, the all-too-tangible realization that I couldn't touch anything took hold. I couldn't grab onto anything. I couldn't stand on anything. The only thing that was keeping me afloat was me. I began floating on my back, and the choppy water immediately splashed me in my face, waterboarding me. I choked and kept adjusting. "I'm going to drown." I knew it. This was it. There would be a search, and helicopters, and my family on the shore for a couple days. Maybe they'd find my bloated corpse somewhere downstream. But this was it. I began panicking and flailing. My arms stung, and I could hardly breathe. I didn't even notice the boat, as it flew past me again, and I was smashed in the head with a life preserver and an inner tube. Scariest fucking moment of my adult life. I'm still a fucking moron. But not around water. My half-Chinese buddy, who looks white, said a word in Chinese that sounded an awful lot like the N-word to his friend at the club really loud right when the music stopped and people were not happy. I walked/bust/hitchhiked to Chicago from Cleveland when I was 18. Wanted an experience. Met a lot of great people along the way. I wish there was some way, these decades later, to LTK how much their friendliness and generosity of their time and knowledge meant to me. One person though, in a van, I never should have got in. Not a pleasant person, after all. Put on a new face once I settled in. I didn't realize how people could change their eyes from one moment to the next. He asked if I ever dated for money. Asked if anyone knew where I was. Thought I was maybe younger and less savvy than I was. I politely told him no, and to pull over and allow me to exit. He drove for another mile or so. That was my moment. I didn't know how it would go, but steeled myself for a potential situation. That was a long few minutes. Then he pulled over, said sorry for the misunderstanding, and I left the van, ready to live my life and determined to never feel like a potential victim again. I believe he changed his mind at some point, and I don't know what made him do that. The worst was when I had a kidney infection. I didn't know that I had anything serious wrong with me, and I was home alone. I woke up at one point and realized that I was definitely not okay. I couldn't move and thought, oh, I'm dying. Oh well, and just closed my eyes again. Not very dramatic, but lots of deaths aren't. My dog even thought I was going to die. In the following days, after I got antibiotics, she wouldn't go for walks with anyone else, and slept on my chest to keep me safe. She loved walks more than anything, even walked on her last day on Earth, so her not going for a walk must have meant she thought I was on the brink of death. Well, admittedly it hasn't happened yet, but I suspect once our school year starts, and all of the kids run into the school, that will be my first thought. A cockroach showed up while I was on the toilet. The end. When I got boned, scariest part was the sound of the crunch on my driver's side door / wheel well, then the ringing in my wars from the airbags going off. I luckily was uninjured, but if I was going any faster I would have been dead, or any slower I would have hit a stoplight pole. I've had several got beat up by a group of people. I was able to grab a broken hockey stick, and keep them far enough away for me to catch my breath, and then run away too. I wasn't actually going to die, but in the middle of the night, a bunch of my muscles all cramped / pulled all at once, and it was painful, and it sure felt like I was gonna die. Anytime my dad drives, he does so as if he's checked off everything in his bucket list. You know what I mean? So anyways, we were getting off the highway, going onto the off-ramp. He crossed that solid white line that you're not supposed to cross, and cut off an 18-wheeler. He was within 5 feet of hitting it. I yelled at him for reckless driving, and the next time something similar happens, I'm gonna call the cops. It doesn't matter that he's my dad, I'm not gonna risk my life like that. 4. Forgot to bring food on an 8-hour hike. I only felt panic for about 5 minutes of the lunch break, because some blessed soul brought extra food, and shared. During my last year's velo trip, I was already 56 kilometers in, and I had to turn onto a highway, and continue next 15 kilometers there. Suddenly the rain started to fall heavily. The road visibility became non-existent, and the cars that drove by splashed a lot of mud on me. I tried to go further, but the mud got into my bicycle's chain, and started to skip gears, which made the bicycle quite uncontrollable for a bit. When I realized how heavy the rain is, and that the cars that drove by probably didn't have bigger visibility than I did, I started to think that maybe this is it. When I snapped out of it I called my sister to pick me up. She has a car that can store a bicycle easily, and we agreed to meet up after 5 kilometers in a restaurant. So I used my Precious water to wash out the gear, and made my way over there. Yeah, fun times. Got robbed. Guy lifted his shirt to pull something out of his waistband. Was sure it was a gun, and he was going to kill me. So, it's weird to say I was okay with getting stabbed, but I was cool with it in the moment. Not making the turn skiing on the medium advanced slope which was icy, and realizing that I was going to hit the fence. That fence is way softer than it looks. I was trying surfing for the first time. I was laying down on the board waiting for a good wave. My dad was there to help me because I was only 13. The wave came but I was laying too close to the front of the board, and it flipped. I tried to get back above the surface, but another massive wave pushed me back down. My ankle was attached to a thing so that the board wouldn't float away, and because the board got pushed to shore my face got dragged under the water. There were lifeguards at the beach, so if anything serious had happened I would have been rescued, but it was still scary. When I was 10, I was tubing in a river, and I shifted my weight too far one way and promptly flipped over. River stones apparently don't give you good grip, especially when you're caught in a current. I remember thinking I was going to either drown or smack against a boulder. Luckily, my grandfather had seen me flip over and pulled me out just in time. I'm deathly allergic to cashews, and was also a weird child who had no idea that cashews weren't supposed to make you itchy. I eventually reached a point where I ate one too many, and went into anaphylactic shock. I had no EpiPen, BC. I didn't know I was allergic at the time, and refused to let my parents know, because I was very stubborn and scared of hospitals. I could feel my throat closing and my body shutting down, but was oddly at peace with it. Eventually my dad noticed the symptoms and rushed me to the ER. I didn't realize how serious the situation was until I got there, and was greeted by a swarm of concerned people and an EpiPen. I somehow ended up okay, but I definitely dealt with the trauma of a near-death experience afterwards. Now I keep an EpiPen with me at all times because I do not want to repeat that. Got cellulitis, which is bacteria in your lymph nodes. I had lots of pain in my right armpit, and sores appeared. Then I got a fever. Went to the doctor and found out I had cut myself shaving, and bacteria got in, and the sores needed to be drained of pus and blood, very painful. Had to go a few times a week for 2 weeks. Turns out I would have died soon if I didn't go to the doctor. The bacteria would have spread through my body and killed me. I still have tenderness there, and am very careful about shaving still. Use a razor no more than 3 times that way is better for not getting a cut. There was a rattlesnake in my house, and it was hard to get it out. Driving through the mountains, and I took a corner way too fast. Back end went out and I AWD drifted the corner. There was a cliff just off the road. I was terrified. I don't know if this counts, but I made a really terrible decision while on vacation with my family, and I decided that I wanted to kill myself when we got home. I felt such a weight leave my shoulders as soon as I decided that. It was pure bliss, knowing that I could end my pain in just a few days. I can't even describe the relief I felt. It's been about 7 years since then, but it was the closest I ever came to death, I think, and I wonder why it just felt so peaceful at the time, when now I am terrified to die. It was an after party, and we decided to go for a swim in a nearby river. Me and my friends decided to cross the river so that we could go to the cliff and jump. Little did we know that current was very strong, and not only that, due to the water hitting the cliff, it created somewhat a whirlpool current. So when we crossed the river, almost all of us nearly drowned. During that hot moment, I couldn't accept that I would die from drowning. Thankfully, due to my adrenaline rush, I didn't get tired easily, so we managed to resurface. I know that it might not make sense, it is just that I can't really describe things that well. When my truck brakes locked for no reason, and while driving down the motorway with flames coming out. Yeah, I'm going to die. Did skydiving static line, and on my second jump, I tried to grab the door on the way out. Fear kicked in, and it was instinctive. This knocked me off axis and I started to spin uncontrollably. I was certain my parachute would get tangled when trying to open, and I would die. Luckily it opened fine. Never did a skydive again. When my GF broke up with me, I honestly felt like committing suicide. Trapped in my apartment while the building was on fire. I was very close to jumping out the damn window, second story, if the firemen didn't come when they did. I had a friend in high school who died at 16 due to a house fire, and I was convinced I would be the next one. I was training in the open sea with jellyfishes around. We were about 12 swimmers just strolling around in the water for about 2 hours. I was the first to see a jellyfish below us. It was white and huge. I thought to myself, this can't be a good sign. When we started, the jellyfish were making way for us, because we were like a herd, so they stayed below us. An hour or so into the swim, we all got separated from each other because of the waves and so, but we all knew where we were headed. It was me and some other girl beside each other taking turns at setting the pace. I was in front of her for like 20 minutes. And then we switched to become her in front of me, with the jellyfish still beneath us. While I was swimming behind her, I saw another jellyfish beneath us, and just had the feeling I should stare at it. Suddenly I hit what felt like a brick wall that hurt my neck a lot. Then I feel a sting on my left arm, my back, and my nose. What happened was the girl saw the jellyfish and swerved just in time to avoid it, leading to me smashing right into it. She didn't even notice that I got hit, and continued swimming. It was just me, alone in the middle of the sea, with one giant friendly jelly boy around. I began to sink, and I thought to myself, well, I have to do something here. Then I felt adrenaline rush in my body, and I began to swim to the surface as fast as I can. I reached the top and screamed from the top of my lungs for help. Luckily, the coach was around on a small boat just to keep an eye on us. He heard my scream, and came to pick me up. I had a paranoia from anything white underwater for about 2 months. It was so intense that I saw a white plastic bag at the bottom of my local pool, and stopped in my place to check if it's safe to go or not. 1/10 jellyfish are not friendly. January 3rd, 2020. I went to the emergency room, because my ribs were killing me from when I had passed out a few days prior. They discovered that I had cracked several ribs. They also discovered a mass in my brain. But that wasn't my "so this is how I'm going to die" moment. I knew very little about tumors at the time. When I was released from the hospital, after having 2 craniotomies in a 36-hour period, to remove as much as the tumor as possible, I did a lot of research. That it was a glioma tumor. Researching glioma tumors led me to the discovery of glioblastomas, with the worst being grade 4. On February 7, 2020, I went to my appointment to find out the results of the biopsy. Grade 4 glioblastoma. 12 to 14 months to live. That was my "so this is how I'm going to die" moment. The crazy thing is, when I read how gliomas can be several different types of tumors, I knew it was going to be a glioblastoma, and I knew it would be a grade 4. Knowing months in advance, it's both a blessing and a curse. Well, any other year it would be. But with this pandemic and the world pretty much closed for repairs, it feels like even more of a slap in the face. I'm healthy at the moment, but I can't get out there and live my life to the fullest, and I'm not going to outlast this pandemic.